Okay. All right. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Dungeon Mastery with Ben and Brian. My name's Ben Thompson. I'm the creator and author of Badass of the Week, and I wrote the Badass book series, Epic Fails, and the Guts and Glory series. I've been playing D&D since the early 90s, since second edition basically, and I've been DMing basically nonstop since then. And here with Brian Snowdy, who has been drawing magic cards in Dungeons and Dragons even longer than that. He's a longtime vet of drawing a couple hundred magic cards, a bunch of original D&D art, some Pathfinder stuff. And he's my DM when I play over at his house on Sundays. Yeah. So we just wanted to do this show to kind of have some people that have been writing and creating and doing D&D stuff for a really long time, and we're kind of just gonna get together and once a week we'll talk about some cool adventure ideas, some cool character ideas, monsters, like the kind of stuff that we love. And Brian's gonna draw some cool art and some cool pictures and everything, and then all of it's going to be available basically for free on here and on Instagram and Facebook and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know. We're still figuring out the
Yeah, we're still figuring all this stuff out. But what I wanted to do was do what I called single-page adventures, like little things like this. People are doing single-page adventures, but Ben and I want to do some really cool stuff. And I want to do some original artwork so that each single-page adventure is a complete painted or hand-drawn piece of artwork as well. So, talking old school, really old school. What are we going to talk about, Ben?
We're going to be talking about the Thracian Gladiator.
Ooh, I like that. Spartacus stuff. Yeah.
So the Thracian was, so you know how like in ancient Rome you had all the different types of gladiators, right? You had the dude with the net and the trident, and you had like...
Rhetorius.
He was the Rhetorius, and you have a couple different styles of gladiator that all fought in the old times. And one of these types was called the Thracian, and he's one of the more visually cool looking dudes.
Yeah, very cool. And also the Thracians were, they're kind of like what, Greek hillbillies?
Yeah, so the Thracian people are Greek hillbillies. They're Thracia is like northern Greece,
yes.
Bulgaria.
In the mountains.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's in like southeastern Bulgaria, northern Greece, and then like down that peninsula where Constantinople and Istanbul is. Mm-hmm. So they were, conquered. They sided with the Trojans during in the Iliad,
yep.
And they're
pretty tough.
They were pretty tough, right?
You don't want to mess with them.
Yeah, they were like tough hill, like barbarian people, and kind of like with the Celts and a lot of these other barbarian tribes. The reason they didn't win was because they didn't unify.
Yes.
And the Romans or the Greeks or the Persians were the first ones to take them, and they were just kind of like, well, you've been at war with this guy for the last 500 years, like...
Yeah, let me check my watch.
Yeah. Why don't we help you kill your neighbors, and then you can just join us? And then, so that kind of deal. Then you betray them, you double-cross the guys that helped you, and next thing you know... But so the Macedonians took them, the Greeks took them, the Persians...
And they called them, what, peltasts?
Peltasts, yeah. Yes. That was like their fighting style, which was you had a shield...
And spear.
Spear, and you could throw it. So you carried 3 javelins, mm-hmm. And you had one in your hand while your arm was slung on the shield. And you threw the one, and then you had 2 others that you could throw. And they say that maybe the pilum came from that, the Roman spear that they threw.
That's
maybe that was an idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That came from the peltast.
And they had that big, huge curved hat. Too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which we're going to see in their in the armor that they wore.
Yeah.
In their helmets.
So when the Romans came through in like 700 in the early first century, they took over Thrace, and one of the things the Romans loved to do with the Gladiator games was, everybody kind of knows the Gladiator games. You had the big Colosseum, and there were smaller ones around too, and you just had these 2 guys that would fight to the death, or you throw a bunch of Christians to the wolves, or whatever it is you're going to do. And but what the Romans liked to do was to dress up the gladiators as in the armor and equipment of the people that they'd conquered. Yeah. And it was kind of like, we own these guys, we crushed them, now we're going to make them fight for us. So you didn't have to be a Thracian to be a Thracian gladiator. It was kind of like
that is true.
It was kind of like how you didn't have to be from Chicago if you wanted to play for the Bulls, right?
Exactly.
Like they were just dressed up as that, but those guys that were gladiators for the Thracian gladiators were always that same type of gladiator.
Yes, they had to fight in that style and wear that basically that sports equipment.
Yeah, exactly. That was their uniform,
Mm-hmm.
And different groups had different ones that they favored. So like you could be like a fan of the Thracians, or I'm a fan of the Gauls, or I'm a fan of the Retarii.
Yeah.
And
or Hoplomachus.
Yeah, the Hoplomachus, the Greek ones, the Samnites, which were
Samnites.
And then there was like. So Caligula was a big fan of the Thracians.
Yes.
And he would train with them, and he hired his personal Praetorian bodyguards from Thracian gladiators. And there was one time when like his favorite Thracian gladiator was defeated by a what was he? He was a Murmillo, which was kind of a Gaul. Mm-hmm. And he got beat by this guy, and Caligula poured a bunch of poison into the wounds that the gladiator had sustained and killed him right there on the spot.
Of course he did. He's Caligula. What are you going to do? Right?
There was another emperor named Domitian who was a big fan of the Thracians.
Yes, yeah.
And then when he died, he was overthrown by his brother. His brother Domitian was the brother.
Was this when they had the two rulers?
Yeah, they were brothers.
Yes.
So it was Titus, and he was overthrown by Domitian.
Yes.
And Domitian, the brother loved the Thracians, and this guy hated them. He liked the Murmillos, which was like the mortal enemy of, because each gladiator type had like its enemy type, because they matched up well. Yeah. And so Domitian was he hated the Thracians, and then he was like at one of the gladiator games, and he heard somebody in the stands behind him be like, "Man, I hate those Thracians." So he had that guy pulled out of the stands and put down on the gladiator thing and eaten by dogs, while somebody was holding up a sign that said, "This guy disrespected the emperor." So it was a big deal.
It was a little crazy.
So the Thracian had a small shield.
Yeah, it was still a curved square shield, but it was smaller.
Yeah, so for D&D and Pathfinder purposes, probably like a buckler would count as, right? Like it's probably about this big. Mm-hmm. And he had a closed helmet.
Yes, complete closed helmet.
Yeah, very cool looking. We'll put up a picture of it when we run this. He carried very little armor on his chest, but he had two big tall greaves on his legs.
Yeah, they were extra long, so that when you bent your knee, the greave would actually stick out. It went up to the mid to top thigh.
Yeah. Very interesting. We'll put up some pictures while we're talking about this. We haven't quite figured out like how to plan for the things that we're going to put up when I'm editing the video right now. But
we're going to get to it.
We're going to figure it out. And so he had the tall greaves, the leather strips, the closed helm.
And he had armor on his sword arm.
Yeah.
Yes. That was very important.
Yeah. It looks kind of like when you're training attack dogs. You know, you have like that one. Yes. It's kind of like that, but he had it on one arm. Mm-hmm. Kind of on the sword arm, because he had the shield on the other end. Yes. And then and his sword was a short sword. It's called a sika. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think so.
And it was curved like a kukri.
Yes. Now here's where we get into some weird stuff here, Ben. Some people say it was a lower curved sword. Some people say it's an upper curved sword.
Oh, yeah, because I couldn't find anything about whether the blade was on the inside or on the outside.
Or the cutting edge is on the inside or the outside.
Yeah, is it both. A saber or is it a kukri? Yeah, or both.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing about a curved sword, right? Go over the top of a shield.
Yeah.
So, a Thracian is kind of like a pinpoint kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So the thing that I love with it is that the Thracians were bordered just north. So like the Thracians were southern Romania, and the northern Romanians were called the Dacians.
Yes.
And then a couple hundred years after,
but the Dacians also used a two-handed curved instep sword, which would cut a helmet right in half.
Yeah, it was called a falx.
Yeah.
And this was a couple hundred years after the Thracians. So I would guess that the blade would have been on the inside, because next door they're using that two-handed version of that. And it's working really well against the Romans because it's going over the top of their shields and cutting right into their helmets.
Yeah, that's why they wore the cross guard later on, if you see in Roman helmets.
Oh, really?
That was through the Dacian Wars. Yeah. They lost an entire legion in Dacia.
Yeah.
They don't advertise that, right?
They never advertise when they lose a legion.
Okay. You advertise, hey, we won this war, we won this. Okay, we lost the legion over here. Well, okay, we won this. Yeah.
The great glory of the 13th and the 15th legions, and let's not talk about the 14th.
Yeah, they just disappeared somewhere. Yeah.
And then the most famous of the Thracian gladiators, of course, was Spartacus.
Yes,
he was
he
was actually Thracian, and he was a Thracian-style gladiator.
Yes, there's also some mention of him actually being a part of the Roman military.
Yeah, so this
like a lieutenant or something like that.
The story goes that he signed up as one of the auxiliaries, and that he was in this big battle and the Romans were losing, and rather than stay there and fight to the death and get annihilated, he retreated.
Yeah.
And then they marked him as a coward, and they sold him and his wife into slavery.
Yes.
And trained him to be a gladiator because he was a good warrior. But then the first thing he did when they gave him a sword was break out with like 70 dudes and rescue his wife and like go rampage across the Italian countryside.
Yeah. They sacked a couple of towns.
Speaking of legions, he defeated the praetor. He ended up with like 100,000 people, like men, women, and children. Everybody that was like bandits and outlaws, or
they
like
made it all the way
people.
to the other side of Italy.
Yeah, they got all the way to the toe of the boot.
Right to the coast.
Yep. And they defeated the praetor of Rome. They defeated 2 legions. And then Crassus, who's part of the famous triumvirate, he got famous by defeating Spartacus. He showed up with 8 legions.
Yeah.
There's not much you could do about that. The story goes...
Crassus was also the guy who, he was kind of a mafia dude. He extorted money from people because he was the head of the fire department. And he's like, how about this? You pay me some money, and when a fire starts, I'll put it out. If you don't, maybe we'll get around to it. That's how he made his millions.
That's how he became the richest man in Rome.
Yeah, richest man in Rome. Yeah, head of the fire department.
Head of the fire department. Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Let's get back to Spartacus.
Yeah. Oh no. So Spartacus, the story, in the movie they do the I am Spartacus thing, but in real life he died fighting.
Yes, he did.
He was trying to get to Crassus and he didn't get to him, but he was like one of the last guys left. Like he fought to the death because he wasn't going to go back to being a prisoner. They did crucify 6,600 of his men.
Yes, on the Appian Way, and I think it ran for 5 miles.
Yeah.
5 Roman miles.
5 Roman miles, and Appian Way is the main road into the city.
Yes, that's the I-5 going into Seattle.
Yeah, it's the I-95 of Rome, and he never gave the order for them to be taken down.
Yeah.
So they just rotted. Yeah,
they rotted there for years.
Turned into skeletons. Yes. And pretty gnarly. That's a pretty cool D&D intro, though, too, right? Like, you're going to go to the new town and see, you go into the new kingdom, the new empire, or whatever, and you're walking along the road and you're just seeing, like, crucified bodies for 5 miles on your way into town. It really sets the stage for what you can expect when you get there.
But an interesting visual.
Yeah. That would be a pretty...
I can draw stuff like that.
Yeah. That would be a good cover to a book about, like, adventures in, whatever kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is an amazing thing that's written on the walls of Pompeii that they found, and it's about a Thracian gladiator named Celadus, and he's referred to as the girl's hero. Because these guys were the rock stars.
Yeah, the rock and rollers.
Yeah, they were the hot guy superstars of the movie stars of the time period. So, like, a lot of these guys were enslaved and they fought until they died, and their life was really miserable. Yes. But if you were good,
some of them,
you put on a good show.
Yeah, chick magnet.
Yep. Yeah. And they refer to him as a heartthrob. I don't know. That was in quotation marks.
That's getting a little carried away.
That was in quotation marks in the article that I was reading, and I don't know if there's a Latin word for that or what. But
we should look that up.
Yeah.
By the way, if you speak Latin, we would like to hear from you. Heartthrob. Okay, just let us know. Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, they included the original Latin, but I don't speak it, so I don't know.
Me too. So we got to draw or paint one of these things?
Yeah, we should draw or paint one of these. You should draw or paint. You don't want me to draw or paint any of this stuff.
I have to draw it.
Right.
Okay. That sounds like a good idea.
I got the easy part. I just have to come up with this stuff. You got to write. You got to actually draw it.
Hey, we're going to show you pictures of me drawing some of this stuff, okay? So
yeah.
Stay tuned, okay?
Yeah.
Howdy, everybody. We're back.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully the audio and video quality has improved since the last time we did this.
We got some new equipment.
Yeah, we've been filming on we brought my entire desktop computer and set it up on the table up here, and then we recorded ourselves with my webcam and my podcasting microphone. And then I saw Brian's art, and I realized I had to get a better setup if I was going to if I was going to be doing this more professionally. Yeah. After looking at those clips that we just showed you of the Thracian in development, we had to upgrade our gear. So hopefully this is an improvement. If it's worse, then it's just because we haven't learned how to use the gear yet, because it's definitely better gear and more expensive.
We'll get better. But we do have some done art, Ben. We have some show and tell stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a minor piece of the art. So we have the Thracian helmet.
Yeah. Show it to that.
Oh yeah, I'll show it to this
the
one.
Close-up camera.
Yeah, the close-up camera. Here we go. And we'll be getting scans of this stuff, and you guys will be able to download high-res scans of the artwork. So when it's all finished.
Yeah, that's going to be the plan. So we've been talking about this a lot. So I think what we're going to do is we'll have an Instagram and we'll post pictures of all of this stuff. We'll have a Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. It should all be set up. It'll be all links for it down in the. How was that?
The bomb squad. Or
There'll be all the social media stuff. We're going to set that all up, so that'll be all in the description below this video. And
there'll be videos and pictures of me painting the artwork too. So for all you art lovers out there, you'll be able to see how I do it. And we'll do some tutorials every once in a while. It's going to be some real Bob Ross kind of stuff. Yeah.
Happy little
hand grenades and things like that. Yeah. And also sneak preview too. Now this one's not quite done yet, but this is the Thracian here. Oh yes. Another couple hours, he's going to be done.
This is the first time I've seen. This is the first time I've seen him like this.
Yeah, I sent you some photos.
Yeah, I saw the photos, and then I was at your house, and I took a little video of your setup while we were.
Yes, that's right. But I hadn't got too far on this guy yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's almost done. He'll be done probably by the end of the day today.
So cool.
Then I'll get him scanned in, and everyone's going to be happy.
Okay, so let's talk about.
Do you want to go through the Thracian a little, tell some cool little pointers, or do you want to save it for a nice big fat surprise when they download the PDF?
Well, we could talk a little bit about what we came up with. So, one thing with building the Thracian, one thing that makes the Thracian different than the other types of gladiators is his loadout, right? So he's got that curved sword and he's got the shield. Mm-hmm. So what I ended up building out for these guys were a lot of sword and shield combat type of styles, right? There's a few setups for gladiators in both D&D and Pathfinder, but a lot of them are more towards being showy and doing charisma kinds of things. And it's well, there's plenty of gladiators who are just these giant behemoth dudes that just kick butt, right? So I wanted to put in a couple builds for that type of guy, because the dude, that you just saw the picture of, he's this hulking giant dude in a full helmet that you can't see his face. So that's a pretty scary deal, and that guy might not be getting all the chicks. That guy might just be scaring everybody.
He could be a pretty boy once he takes the helmet off. You don't know.
Yeah, he's protecting his beautiful face.
Yeah, he does have the fully enclosed helmet. That is another trait of the Thracian.
Yeah. So I thought of that as being like maybe a cool like monster even, or like a cool like villain kind of guy where you never see his face and he's kind of
a Darth Vader type character.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so that could be pretty cool setup. And then I had the idea of like, what if it's somebody that people would know. And like I had like the Man in the Iron Mask kind of idea where like it's the Emperor, but he's been deposed by like, and then the real Emperor's locked in this helmet and he can't take it off, and he has to fight in that all the time. Like that's.
Or he's Batman. He's Bruce Wayne during the day, and at night he's a gladiator.
That's pretty cool. Like he owns like he thinks that everybody thinks it's a gladiator that he owns, but it's really just him dressing up to like keep his skills sharp.
Sure, why not?
That
makes a fun story.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. That'd be a pretty awesome setup.
It would be. You want to talk about some attribute traits and some little cool things we came up with at all?
Yeah. So what we were thinking was, we kind of talked about this a little bit last time, which was that he's going to be a strength, dexterity kind of guy, and you're going to have to go with, you need the strength, of course, if you're going to be a fighter, and there's not a whole lot of ways that you would want to build this guy that don't involve him being a fighter class. So you definitely are going to need strength because you're going to be doing a lot of hand-to-hand combat. And we were saying you're going to need a lot of dexterity for the showy stuff, but also because you're not wearing that much armor, right? He's armored everywhere except for his vital organs.
Yeah, except for his chest, his heart and lungs and liver.
Yeah, everything else is covered, but you're a little bit exposed in the middle. And I think it's kind of like the Red Sonja armor, right? The chainmail bikini.
Oh yeah. Looks cool, protects really nothing.
Yeah, this is the dude version of that.
Yeah. His legs are all covered though. Yeah, so.
But his abs are free.
That's true. Yeah. Who came up with that pseudo armor? What were the Romans thinking? Was it a big sick joke?
The girl's hero. It's that guy from last week. We were talking about. Sure. That's why all the girls like going to. That's why you got your girlfriend to go to the Gladiator games with you. One thing that came up that I was thinking of when we were coming up with this stuff was that it's kind of cool because you could have any race would work. As a Thracian. So if you wanted to play something weird like a Minotaur, right? There's no easy way, especially if you're DMing and you've got a player that wants to play a Minotaur or a Cyclops or a
Goblin.
That
would just be the greatest.
Yeah.
Man, I should draw that.
Yeah, it works, right? Because like even with the Goblin, right? Because there's no easy way to work that into like you're all hanging out at a tavern and then this Goblin adventurer rolls up. That's not going to work that well in a lot of scenarios or a lot of worlds that you're going to build. But you could picture like. You could picture like the Gladiator and he's out on the field and like the portcullis opens up and it's just like 100 goblins come running out, right? And like maybe they end up killing this guy and this goblin's like just one of those dudes from that, right? So he's a goblin gladiator and he survives like because the Romans love to put them up against all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And they're always throwing people to lions and dogs and you fight an elephant or whatever.
Why not throw them to goblins?
Yeah, why not throw them to goblins? Why not get two goblins and prisoners of war and make them fight each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was pretty cool. We found some like equivalents for gear that should work, and some things actually have the correct gear. So that wasn't too bad.
Just be as far as weapon, just be a regular short sword. This would be a curved one, but it'd be a short sword. The cats are running around making a bunch of noise.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a gladiator helmet on the both of yous.
Yeah, cats. We'll have them gladiator fight each other.
And so you just use short sword rules, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was what I said, was like it could work as a kukri because it's got the curve that a kukri had. It could work as a short sword. Some things have like stats for gladius, stuff like that. You can use it as a dagger if you wanted to. Anywhere in that range works. And then for the armor, I just said like you could basically just call it studded leather because that's...
Probably.
There's no real equivalent for that weird type of armor, but you got
maybe splinted armor, maybe.
But you don't have the chest protection, right? So like the splinted
armor, you'd have to go down or up depending on what armor.
Yeah, basically, because it doesn't even count as a breastplate because that's the only piece you don't have.
Yeah.
So you've got bronze or iron or whatever on the arm and on the legs and on the head, but nothing here. Nobody's really. Really.
So you got a shield though.
Yeah, he's got the shield. So. Yeah, a lot of the fighting style that you run into when you read about these guys is that they were knocking people over with the shield, right? Because they're covering their torso with it,
it's almost redundant armor at that point if you're fighting by like covering with your torso and like going around or over with the curved sword. But he was knocking people down with it a lot. So a lot of the builds that we're coming up with involve like knocking people over.
Shield slams and strikes and things like that.
Yeah.
Knocking someone to the ground.
Yeah. I'm going to take this thing from my cats so they're not just scratching at the floor the entire time we're hanging out.
We're going to edit that part out.
Yeah. It was like a little twist tie that was part of this camera gear that I just bought, and then they were chasing it around all over the place. Now they're mad at me.
Now they're pissed.
We were talking about building a backstory for your character if he was going to be a Thracian style gladiator. So like, I'm going to kill these cats. We're talking about building a backstory for your gladiator type of character. And one of the cool things with this is that he can really be from anywhere, because all he has to do is end up getting captured by the Romans or whoever your evil empire is in your game. All he has to do is end up getting captured by them, and then you've got he's a gladiator.
Yeah.
So he could be a sailor, he could be like a peasant farmer, he could be a warrior, he could be a deserted soldier or a captured soldier. He could just be like some people from the empire went through a portal into like hell and like captured a demon and brought him back. Like,
Sky's the limit.
yeah, you can really make him any race, any backstory. It all kind of works as long as you can build it into to where he's at right now. And then one of the things that is kind of an interesting thing that you can do for your players when they're building a guy like this is to have them really think about where the guy came from and how he ended up in this mess, how he got out of it, right? Because you can't be a D&D adventurer gladiator while you're still working as a gladiator, because by definition you're a slave, right? So
he has to have escaped. Yeah. Or won his freedom in some way.
Yeah. He won his freedom, or like he saved some guy's life and then that guy bought out his contract, or he killed his masters and escaped, or
maybe he's a traveling bodyguard.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. He's, they make him fight in the arenas sometimes, but then he's a traveling bodyguard. That could work really well. And in the Roman Empire there was the big Colosseum, but they had all of these little arenas all over the place as well. And one thing to think about is like, where did this guy fight, right? Was he fighting in like these dirty arenas? Was he fighting in some guy's private like pit underneath his castle?
Sure.
Or was he fighting in like the Colosseum?
Or was he making the tour circuit?
Yeah. The touring fighter. A lot of it's going to depend on his level, right? It's kind of what he's going to get for his backstory, but you should also figure out how famous he is as a gladiator, right? Is he just some nobody like undercard MMA guy, or is he,
is his name in lights on a billboard? Yeah.
Because that's going to make a difference if you're trying to like sneak through a town or go undetected or go unnoticed somewhere if you're like a celebrity, which a lot of these guys were.
Yeah.
So that could make your life hard when you're trying to blend into society.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for Hulk Hogan to go sneaking around somewhere.
Yeah, especially if like his gear is wearing the armor that he still wore. Even with the Thracian with the helm that's covered up. I'm putting the cats away.
This is really good.
So these are the cats. They're like 4 months old or something. I got these little kittens, and they just crush it. All right, guys.
Okay, we're back. I told you, we're still working out the bugs here.
Yeah, note to self in the future.
Yes.
More cats.
Pen your beasts.
Yeah. Although, honestly, like the video of those cats like chasing that string all around that's the one that's going to get us 1 million hits.
Oh, yeah.
Patreon.com/2 cats running around my house like maniacs.
3 million views in 1
Yeah,
week.
how did that happen? We went viral day one. We put 40 hours of work into this project, and
10 seconds of cat videos got us to get 1 million views.
I don't even remember where we are now.
We were doing backstories and
backstories.
Talking about Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, yeah. Oh, so one thing that come up is that like people, even though the mask covered your entire face as that style of gladiator, you had the full helmet. You've got all the decorations and stuff on it, and Brian did that in the illustration where you see the blue and the red plumes coming out of its helmet. The armor is all very different. Like there was no set uniform for these guys. It wasn't like the Imperial Roman army where they all kind of dressed the same every time. Like these guys were flashy and they put their gear together.
Custom gear.
Yeah, it's all custom. It's all customized to them. I mean, a good way to think about it is like how no hockey goalies have the same pads and helmet, right? They put all different kinds of art on their helmet. They have all different kinds of stuff on their pads, like different color schemes. Even two goalies from the same team have very different looking outfits. It's like that with the Gladiators too. So even with his face covered, if he's wearing the same gear, he's going to be pretty easily distinguishable.
Yeah. His fans will know who he is.
Yeah, his fans will know who he is. If you're in if you're in an elevator with like a lesser known person from a TV show that you love, you will recognize that. Okay, yeah. So it's something that you can think about while you're DMing if you're going to run a campaign. A lot of times, like, you'll get these guys who don't really want to think too much into like the role playing of their stuff. There's some dude who's like a wizard from some arcane backstory. Like he'll show up with 3 pages that he's written out of like backstory for his guy. And then you'll get the guy who's too cool, who's like, yeah, I'm just a warrior, I'm just fight stuff, and I'm a gladiator. And so these are some cool things that you can do. Even though this character is going to be kind of a meathead, his job is to just run into battle, whack you with a sword, and knock you down with a shield. But there's some cool things and some cool questions that you can ask of the player to be like, hey, okay, you can do that. But think of yourself as an NFL player. Like, are you a quarterback? Are you a linebacker? Are you, an MMA fighter? Are you top billing? Or are you low billing? How famous is your guy? How did you become a gladiator? How did you become an enslaved warrior who has to fight for his freedom? And then how did you ultimately acquire that freedom? And I think that it'll surprise you sometimes because this guy who kind of goes in sometimes, like not everybody, but you get guys who will go into it sometimes being like, oh, whatever. I don't know what size dice that is. I'm not a dork, right? And then by the end of the day, he'll be like,
I've never played with anybody like that.
By the end of the day, if you can get him thinking about his backstory enough, by the end of the day, he'll be like, oh, no, we can't go into that town because they know who I am because I used to fight there.
There we go.
So hopefully this is helpful. I guess we'll wrap it there. We'll show you the final art, and
we're gonna throw up some history books too, where you can learn about gladiators, the ones we used as reference, and check them out.
Yeah, all the books that we use for reference are going to be available. We'll have links to them in the description. We'll have links to all of our social media kind of deal. Okay, that's it, and we'll see you guys soon.
Okay, see ya. Bye bye.